Hey, what's up, guys? It's Bakes here, and thank you for joining me for day number 10 of my 31 Days of Horror. This is where I'm watching and reviewing 31 different horror movies over 31 days, all through the month of October till I get to Halloween. Today's movie is a super iconic and beloved horror film, one that probably needs no introduction, but I'm gonna do it anyway. I think it really depends on who you're talking to, because I hear this movie get thrown around the GOAT conversation, one of the greatest horror movies of all time, and obviously opinions and everything factor into that, but for a movie to be this beloved, obviously, it's a great of the genre. It's one of those iconic movies that I'm sure as a horror fan we've all seen before, so I probably won't be adding too much to the conversation that we haven't already heard before. But yeah, a movie that I'm super excited to talk about, especially in a full-length review, which I haven't ever done before for this movie. And a perfect one to watch around this time of year, especially here in Australia. You know, we're in spring at the moment, but the weather's starting to get warmer, and if you've seen this movie, nice, hot, humid vibe. Today's movie is directed by Tobe Hooper from the year 1974, and it's the OG Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Like I said, a beloved horror film, so many fans. Just what can I say about this movie that hasn't already been said, like I mentioned before, but gonna try and chime in and throw in my 2 cents, but before I do that, let's go into the plot for this movie. So, a group of 5 friends, there's also a brother and sister in that lot, take a road trip through Texas. They're going to revisit, this childhood house that they spent some time in, and just refamiliarize themselves with, what was once familiar to them growing up. But unfortunately, they stumble across a house that is home to a twisted family, and yeah, that's pretty much the plot that we have here. So let's get into my thoughts of the OG Texas Chainsaw Massacre from the year 1974. Like I said, it's hard to add something new to a movie that has had so many conversations about it. Like I said, it's arguably the greatest horror movie of all time, depending on who you're talking about. But I really love the hot summer feel, the use of daylight in this movie. Obviously, there's some great night sequences as well, but not hiding all of the terror in the dark, it makes the daytime scary. I think that's something that a lot of people bring up. Another thing that you hear a lot of people bring up, which I'll quickly gloss over, there's actually not a lot of blood in this movie. There's some pretty horrific things going on and some things that are suggested, but it's actually not as bloody as you'd kind of expect if you went into this movie for the first time, I guess. Like I said, these are all things that you probably would have heard before, so I still won't be adding much from here on out. But right from the word go in this movie has this feel and this vibe that is just like fucking terrifying. The opening text and the narration going over, saying like, this is the story of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and it's like, oh, that is so fucking cool. The camera flashes on the corpses, the radio reports about the grave robbing. The score is so super iconic as well, and it's so sharp and piercing, and it's genuinely one of the creepiest scores in any horror movie, and it still holds up to this day. I think that's something in horror that will never fade. When a good score hits, it never is not effective, and this movie just has such an iconic score that always sends a chill down my spine. This movie is just a nightmare right from the start, and I'm just super excited to expand more on this film. If you were someone who knows a little bit of the backstory behind this movie, you probably would have heard that director Tobe Hooper, who is one of the greats of the horror genre and has made so many iconic horror movies alongside the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, but as I said, when he was going into making this movie, you probably would have heard that he kind of didn't really know what he was doing and didn't really have too much experience, but somehow by fluke made one of the greatest horror movies of all time, which is just crazy to think about. Imagine accidentally making one of the best movies of its genre. Like, that is just wild to think about. But even if he legit didn't know what he was doing while making this movie, there's some really good directing choices. And another thing that is super underrated, and my boy JP brought it up on the 22 Shots of Moods and Horror podcast a few episodes back now, and when he brought it up, I just went, yeah, that is so true. And rewatching the movie now, it just really cemented it in my brain. There are some super underrated shots in this movie. Like, one shot that comes to mind is Pam getting off the chair swing and walking up towards the house, and the camera is shooting it from like this low angle, and it looks fucking stunning. You've got like the bright blue sky and obviously her approaching the house, and the house just seems to be glooming over her. Like, that is super cool. Another iconic shot in this movie that I think is just beautiful is the close up on Sally's eyes during the dinner scene towards the end of the film. Like, the green bouncing off her eyes and the tears swelling up, like a beautiful shot again. There's even some like small glossed over shots that yes are iconic to this movie, but I think are underappreciated for how good of shots they actually are. Like Pam trying to escape the house, and just as she gets out the door, Leatherface grabbing her and pulling her back in. Just super iconic, but beautiful shot. Obviously, you've got the end of the movie where Leatherface is standing on the road swinging the chainsaw around, and you've got like the yellow sky behind him, and pretty much his silhouette like swinging this chainsaw. Like I think that is absolutely beautiful as well. So super underrated when it comes to shots in this movie. And I think why those things get underappreciated is because of the style of this movie. It's gritty, it's grimy, it's sweaty, it's hot, it's dirty. I always talk about movies where when you're done watching them, it feels like you need to have a shower. And honestly, this could have been like one of the first movies to ever do it. Like 74, like every other movie that I think of now is like pretty much from Rob Zombie's House of a Thousand Corpses onwards. And speaking of, like, I have to imagine a movie like this inspired directors like Rob Zombie, where, like I said, you have House of a Thousand Corpses and you have The Devil's Rejects and his Halloween remake. They all have this gritty, gross, grimy feel to it. And I'm sure he would have said it somewhere, but I have to imagine Texas Chainsaw Massacre would have been an inspiration. Speaking of, you can't not talk about TCM without bringing up Leatherface. And I think it's one of those things where whenever I bring up this movie, I always talk about how the Sawyer family as a whole are really underrated. But rewatching this movie, it just reminds me of like why Leatherface is the face of the franchise. Like he's just super fucking cool, super iconic. He's just doing his thing. He's fucking badass. Really fucking terrifying too. But as I said, I'm not really adding too much to the conversation by saying that. But even the hitchhiker, the gas station worker, and I think like having all these characters in this movie and rewatching it this time, like just the terror of realizing that like everyone that they've pretty much come in contact with through the process of this movie is like part of this family. It's like fucking terrifying. Like they have no one to turn back to. Like, oh, let's go back to this guy or this guy, because they all fucking know each other and they're all in on the same thing. That shit is fucking freaky as. The cast of kids playing our protagonist group, sorry, in this movie, they're great as well. I will say something that could come across as controversial because I know Franklin is like a fan favorite character, but Franklin still kind of bugs me. From the first time I saw this movie, and I've seen it so many times since, he's just kind of annoying to me. Like, not to a point where it takes anything off like my final score or whatever, or like it's something that comes across as a negative. He's just always kind of bugs me, and I guess not a lot of people agree with me, but whatever. Sally is one of the greatest final girls of all time. She is so baller. She just has so many great scenes, and like she conveys being in a moment of like horror so well. I think like some scenes that are just so fucking cool and baller and just convinces you on how terrifying this movie is. And like I know it sounds very niche and I'm sort of saying it jokingly, but the parts where she jumps out the windows, like it just really shows like how dire of a situation she's in, and like how like jumping out of a second story window is like the pure last resort, and I just fucking love that. So getting to the end of today's review and into my final thoughts and eventually giving it a score out of 10 like I do at the end of all my reviews. This is a movie where I probably didn't add too much to the conversation. Like I said before, everything that I said today you probably heard from 100 other people in 100 other reviews. It's just one of those beloved iconic horror movies where, you know, like I said, I really probably haven't added too much to the conversation because everybody loves expressing how much they love TCM. Like, we're so far past my first time seeing this movie, but yet every single time I watch this movie still, and even rewatching it for today's review, it genuinely gets my heart racing and pounding right from the word go. Like I said earlier in this review, the opening to this movie is genuinely fucking terrifying, but it does not let up. Like, my heart keeps racing because I know it's just going to get more terrifying and more crazy and more wild, and every scene coming up, I know what happens, but still my heart keeps this constant pounding because this movie is just genuinely thrilling and exciting and scary and terrifying. The ending is so iconic and great. Everyone knows the ending to this movie, the getaway chase on the road, and like I said, I've seen this movie so many times. I know Sally gets away, but yet when she is running for that car and trying to climb into the tray of the ute, or if you're American, climb into the tray of the pickup truck, and Leatherface is just behind her, like, still now, I'm like, holy fuck, Sally, get in, because I'm so fucking terrified. Like, my heart is pounding. It's so thrilling, so great, so iconic. Like I said, one of the most iconic, terrifying scores. Literally what I said earlier, I don't think a score ever drops in quality. I don't think you ever hear a score and go, that was more scary the first time. Like, a score always hits, and this one is so memorable and iconic. I really don't know what else to add about this movie. Again, I'm probably adding nothing fresh to the conversation. I'm giving Tobe Hooper's The Texas Chainsaw Massacre from the year 1974 a 9 out of 10. Like, this movie's great. I fucking love this movie. It wasn't too long ago where I ranked the TCM franchise, and I had this one at my number 3, which I know for a lot of people would be so controversial. Like, I guarantee more than majority would have it as their number 1. But the thing is, like, 3 entries in this franchise are, like, pretty much close to perfect. And this is probably the most I've loved Texas Chainsaw Massacre ever throughout my whole viewings, and it's always been a movie I've fucking championed. So maybe it's moved up slightly in my top 3 for the franchise. The rest aren't that great. I think the top 3 are clearly above everything else that the franchise has offered. But just super iconic, great movie. I had a great time revisiting this one, like I always do. I know in the summer, like I said, we're in spring at the moment here in Australia, but I know when it hits summer, I'm going to be watching it again. But thank you for joining me for today's episode of my 31 Days of Horror, and I'll see you tomorrow for day number 11, where we're watching Zombieland.